Well, welcome everybody to Portsmouth Coffee Talks Evening Edition show. And here we are again. The hosts are back because we never finish a conversation. We always have something leading into the next conversation. But we're back again, and we still since this is the beginning. Well, first of all, good evening, host. How you doing?
Good
How's
evening,
everybody?
James.
Yeah, good evening.
Good
And we
evening.
have Leah Drake Stitt and Thomas the Colonel Chapman and John Gantz, and we call him Johnny. Feel free to call him Johnny. Anyway, we since school is still starting, and we're going to continue talking about the school system and things going on. And Leah, why don't you tell us about the little activity we had inviting the students back to school at IC Norcom?
Well, that wasn't a little activity, James. That was a great activity. I am just so thankful for all of the members of the IC Norcom Alumni Association who showed up and showed out the first day of school. We welcomed our students back with us strolling to We Are Family. And we greeted our students and welcomed them back to school. We're so thankful that Dr. Bracy was out there, as well as Dr. Bracy is our superintendent, John Gantz, as well
Okay.
as our school board chairman, Cardia Patillo, and city councilman, Vernon Tillage, and of course, our new principal, Miss Tisha Sanders. We had a wonderful, wonderful morning greeting the students back to school, and you should have seen some of their faces. We had one young fellow who ran off the bus and he was dancing too. So
Yeah.
we had a good day greeting the students as they return to IC Norcom High School on Tuesday. And we look forward to some amazing things taking place at IC Norcom High School under the new leadership of Mrs. Tisha Sanders.
And shout out to Churchland High School, who has new leadership as well. But they just been awarded what was it, the best school?
One of the best schools
Uh,
in
I
2023.
think this is about the third time they've gotten it, or maybe more. The best school. So kudos to Churchland High
Kudos to
School,
Churchland High School.
and
Go
that's based
Truckers.
on academics, I believe, academics and you know absenteeism and things like that. Yeah, so kudos to them. I know we always talk about Norcom, but we have to give it up for
And we
for the
give
other
praise
schools as
to
well.
all schools that deserve it because we
Yeah.
want all schools to be successful.
Leah, one thing I noticed about I had been at a elementary school, Douglas Park, before, where they were coming for the first day. Those kids, because they're kids, they were more enthusiastic about us being there. And this was all men. The times we did that for 2 years in a row, all men would be out there uh, showing those elementary school students that we will welcome them back and we care for them. And some of the high school students, and I can remember those. We all remember those days. The guys do. You tried to be cool.
Try to be cool.
Some of them guys look like they just got out of grade school. Freshmen or whatever, trying to be cool, getting off the bus. But that's what it's all about. But for the
Yeah.
most part, they were. Some of them looked like they were embarrassed. Well, these old people out here jumping around. You know.
Welcoming
But
us back
we were
to
just
school.
trying to show them, even we have been far removed from walking across that stage. We were still enthusiastic about the
Exactly.
school, and that we care about them and what their education and what they're getting ready to face. So
And
that
James,
was a good day.
I must say also, I also went out to Lakeview Elementary School, the home of the Dolphins. And I was out there with the mayor and a few other people as we also greeted the students coming into Lakeview Elementary School. And they had a little picture area there where the kids could take a picture in front of the sign saying first day of school with the curtains and the balloons. And that was a nice day as well. With their new principal, oh my God, am I having a senior moment? As well as I know her.
And
It's going
Lakeview,
it's gonna come to me. But
Yeah,
anyway, they have a new
take your
principal.
time.
They have a new principal there as well, and I know her, and she's my friend. And I'm really, I apologize. So much going on in my head right now, but we had a great day also greeting the students coming back to Lakeview Elementary School. Magnum Parker, Miss
Magnum
Magnum.
Pop.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And I had planned to run over to Western Branch, but I spent so much time at Norcom, I kind of ran out of time. I was going to go over Western Branch and welcome them back, and just let them know, watch out for the Greyhounds. But ran out of time. Maybe they didn't need that anyway.
Ah, that's for sure.
Just thinking about you, Colonel. Thinking about you.
No, I know. It'll be all right.
But anyway, as far as and we had the teachers on here, and they talked about it, and I want to know from you, Johnny, in Texas, when you think about the school system with everything going on there, how is the school system? I know it's not run by the governor, but I know he can have a hand in it. But how is the school system there? And do you all start before or after Labor Day?
We've already started.
Mhm.
We started at the end of August, before Labor Day.
And I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm sure some of the issues are the same, from state to state, even in Texas, issues of concern about safety. Because I noticed, Leah, when we were there welcoming the students, they have these new, and the city spent millions of dollars on it, these new metal detectors in
Metal
there.
detectors,
And
yes.
these are supposed to be more upgraded from what they had before. I think what they had before, somebody could walk by with a bazooka and
Yes,
wouldn't
and they wouldn't pick it up.
But
Yes,
they have these new ones now, and it's kind of a shame we have to have that. But that's the way the world is today. And hey, hey, that sounds like a Temptation song. But anyway, that's the way the world is today, and we just have to be prepared. Why wait for something to happen? You know,
exactly, exactly.
you know.
Yeah,
It's
well,
all about being prepared as best
you,
you can be prepared. You can't be prepared for everything, but areas in which you can be prepared, you need to do that.
But
Texas
you
is
know, into a
renowned.
false sense of security. Because if you
I
want
didn't hear you.
a gun into a school, you can get a gun into a school.
I always wonder about those doors, throughout the buildings. I've heard cases where some students might let somebody in the gym door or something like that. I don't know if and you can't lock all of those. What's that movie that was out? They chained all the doors. Lean on Me.
Yeah, East Side High. East Side
Yeah,
High.
to keep all the bad guys out, but
Yeah.
they weren't supposed to do that, and you can't chain those doors locked. So you have to have, you have to be able to get out of them in case of emergency. So
Yeah.
I guess, you can do all you can. You think we do enough? What else can we do to make sure that our kids, our students are safe?
Texas is now looked at because of Uvalde. What happened down in Uvalde and the shooting of the 18 kids and the 3 teachers, and the police, even though they were there, they waited an hour to go inside the school. Well, they were inside the school. They waited an hour to approach to actually take the shooter down, and I think when you have that case, and then you see something like Nashville, or I think it was Nashville, where they took the shooter down right away. They went right in there, cleared the school, and shot and took care of the threat. I don't know what else you can do. In Texas, they passed a law this year that every school must have a armed guard in it, school resource officer or police officer, peace officer with a weapon. But what they didn't pass was the money for it.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of the schools have now, they've got this law and they can't abide by the law. So they're telling Texas governor, look, we can't do anything even though you passed this because we don't have the money to put a resource officer in here. So how do you expect us to handle that? And it seems like something they would have thought ahead of time. They would have thought of ahead of time.
Or
Well,
your
John,
politicians don't think
we
ahead
have
of time.
resource officers in each of our schools as well, which is provided by the sheriff's department. So we have deputies who are assigned to each of the schools in Portsmouth, and they're in the schools. Then at one time they were only in the high and middle school, but now they're working the high, middle, and elementary schools. So they're resource officers in all of our schools as well.
That is good.
But in Texas is a different country by itself, because I see nothing but problems, because the governor there has singled out the largest Democratic areas like Houston and Dallas, and I see problems with the resource officers there unfairly targeting people of color. And you talk about Uvalde, because in the majority that is an Hispanic population down there, that is never discussed. And
but it was also Hispanic. It was also a Hispanic chief of police, though.
Yeah.
So you would think that, that being said, he would have sent his officers. I mean, the whole, you've seen it 1,000 times. I've watched it on TV over and over again, and you just can't fathom how they just stood there and hearing bullets, shots going off, and I've always said that these people that always talk about they're these keyboard warriors and they've got guns and they're going to protect their rights and stuff. There's a lot of difference when you say that when you're behind a screen versus when that bullet comes by your head, because they went up on the door and then he started shooting. They ran back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's sad. You let people, you could have possibly saved people, and you had every opportunity to, and you didn't.
Well, they could have saved the others, and that's the problem. The others.
Yes.
The others.
Yes.
Especially with the kind of weapon that guy went in there with, how it really destroyed those young bodies.
Yeah.
That was the sad part of it.
One of the politicians, someone, I don't know if it's a politician, but someone said, if you had the opportunity to see the damage that was done to those children's bodies, that would be enough for them to do something with gun control. Maybe we have to have an Emmett Till moment. You don't want to see children destroyed the way they were destroyed because of the weapons that were used. They said bodies, you couldn't even identify the bodies because of the type of weapons that were used. So I don't know if an Emmett Till moment would make a difference. If they can really see what damage is being done to these children. I don't know what can happen to make these people realize that something needs to be done with gun control. Nobody's talking about taking away people's guns, but you don't need no AR-15s and all those high-powered rifles. You don't need any of those things. You can't even shoot an animal with them.
Yeah. I don't think an Emmett Till message or event would happen today or would affect the GOP. The only thing that's going to affect them is you vote them out of the ballot box, and or the same kind of incident like Uvalde happens in some private school when you shoot about 20 of the Republican kids. Then you'll see an outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
When I say Republican kids, the kids that they have, then you'll see some outrage.
Well, you saw the impact that had on the Republican governor when one of his friends was killed. I think that was, I forgot where that was. And that had a major impact on him, and he wanted to do something to change the laws, but he couldn't get the legislators to join him with him on it.
Yeah, that's Tennessee.
Tennessee, exactly.
Mm-hmm. They don't care. It's the others.
Yeah, and trying to do everything you can to make the kids safe, but you still have these crazies out here that are part of a cult or whatever, or just crazy. And even on the college level, all of us can remember being in college where you could just walk on and off the campus, with no problem. I'm not saying nothing ever happened, but now you have these guys targeting HBCUs and just walking on campus, like we mentioned last week, that was something different. I think that was a party, but in Norfolk State. But, these things are happening, and I don't know how we can protect ourselves completely from that kind of craziness out there. And we all know where a lot of it stems from. You know, the return of outward racism and people being bold enough or trying to make a name for themselves by taking out people that's going to make the most news.
Mm-hmm.
And and just like the guy who walked on the campus um, before he shot those individuals at the Dollar Tree, if it had not been for the security on campus being alerted and not allowing him to come, he first went on the campus of an HBCU.
Oh
That's
yeah,
where he went first.
he would have done his damage there.
He
Yeah,
would have done his damage there, but if it had not been for the alertness of the campus police, who would not let him onto the campus,
Yep.
and that's when he went to the Dollar Tree and shot those 3 individuals at the Dollar Tree.
Mm-hmm.
when I was in Atlanta this summer, and we went over to where Morehouse is and Spelman and all that, and it was they were conducting tours for new students, and they weren't letting anybody else on campus. Not unless you were a part of that tour. And because I wanted to walk, on campus, but I had to respect that. That was for safety reasons. Because with all those tours, anybody could have mixed in.
Yep.
and come on the campus and done some damage there too. So.
Yes.
But not like it was before. You could walk on Norfolk State, or you could walk on Union's campus right on, and all our schools were in the hood back then. So, anybody was on campus at any time, but the threat wasn't as prominent as it is now.
You're right.
Yep. Well, the crazies own the government. Well, they own most of the governments around here, and they own the gun lobby. And this is what they want. They want more guns. More guns means more death. So we just got to get used to it.
Everything is switched. There's lead up there.
We're playing music. We're playing musical tabs here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like Hollywood Squares.
How about that? That's for sure.
I don't know why that happened. I guess the position, I guess they wanted you on top, Leah, huh?
Well, sounds good to me.
You better not mess with that. You gotta let that go.
And it always happens after Thomas says something.
Yeah, how about that?
About the government.
Yeah, let's stick with the school. And we had the teachers on last week, and they talked a little bit about some of the things that they're concerned about. And my concern, and I think Brother Mariner was talking about, he didn't know if some positions would be filled by the time school opened. It was a lot of places, and teachers leaving the profession, and all of us, I believe, can understand why. Pay and respect and the restrictions that they have. So how do we fill that gap? Do we have to start going to the senior homes and say, we mind coming back and teaching a few days a week? Because we have to fill those positions. We have to have people there in order for the school to be effective.
Well, there was a time when teaching was a laudable profession. There are people who really like being teachers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as you said, pay, respect, the laws that have been enforced here. They passed Senate Bill number 3. Let me see, House Bill 1379, in which they're telling them what they can teach, how to teach history in the history of the United States, Black history, more importantly. A lot of teachers didn't want to go with that, and pay here. It says that Texas is like 28th in the nation, and they're down like $7,000, $8,000 over the national average. And a lot of college students aren't going to the teaching profession. So here they're trying to fill the gap by saying that if you have a degree, you don't have to be credentialed as a teacher. You don't have to go take the test. You could have a 4-year degree and go teach econ if your degree is in econ. Yeah,
and be working on that certificate while you're there.
Yeah, but they haven't even asked you to do that.
Mm.
They haven't asked you to do that because they're so short of teachers here. And another thing is the tax revenue rate in your city is directly impactful on the schooling in your area. So if you live in an affluent area, you have schools like down in Allen, which is the largest high school. It has the food courts that they have at the malls, Subway and Papa Do's and the pizza places. They have that inside their cafeteria.
Mm.
Mm.
But you won't find that if you go 30 miles down the road to Dallas, DISD. They still got air conditioners sitting in the windows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sad part.
Yes.
Well, that's always been like that. I can remember the difference between Craddock and Norcom and Wilson and Norcom. The lunches, of course, we were well fed, but those other schools had choices. I mean, if they didn't want the green beans and spinach, they could get a hamburger. They had choices. So that's always been the case. Unequal educational opportunities in our
But
educational field.
if I'm a teacher if I'm looking for pay or building or equipment, I'm going to go look at Allen before I go to DISD. And that's what they're doing. And that's the sad part. And then, of course, like I said, it used to be, I don't even remember back in the Bush days, they talked junk about teachers. They talked badly about teachers. They put teachers up there with unions and the teachers' unions, and they started trying to destroy teachers. But, teachers making $45,000 a year going in there taking the abuse for some of the parents that get on in the classroom. Some of the parents don't want to even come to the classroom until you smack little Johnny's hand and say, "Hey, don't do that, Johnny," or "Johnny, that was wrong." You go to the principal's office. Next thing you're going to see the parents you haven't seen all year long at any of the teachers' meetings, any of the parent-teachers conferences, coming there raising hell.
You're right. I really feel that we're probably reaching that point in time in history when we need to rethink the educational system completely. The way the kids are being taught now is not conducive to the type of children that we have in the school now. And I think just like when we came out of the agricultural age to the industrial age and they had to revamp, I think we're at a point now we need to revamp because how we are teaching these children now, a great number of these kids are not gaining anything from it. You want little Johnny, who has been up all night long taking care of his little brother or sister, and then he witnessed someone being killed the night before or the morning of. You want him to sit up in a classroom and listen to someone lecture to him for 40 minutes. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Education is going to have to become more interactive with these kids. These kids are used to electronics. These kids are used to doing things with their hands. Education is going to have to become more interactive to get kids engaged in learning.
Get their creative juices moving.
Yeah, you're going to have to get those creative juices. Because a lot of these kids have a lot of talent. They have talent that has not even been tapped into. And based upon how we teach kids now, it would never be tapped into because we're teaching children to pass a test. George Bush stopped that with his No Child Left Behind. You're teaching children to pass a test. They're not getting any critical thinking going on. And as long as they pass that test, they're good. But if you take them beyond that test and ask them a question, they just don't know. Mm-hmm. So they need to look at revamping the entire system.
My question would be, you take the city of Portsmouth, you have 3 high schools. And just like I mentioned that Churchland was awarded best high school in the country or however that is. And that's been several times they've gotten that designation. And Norcom has gotten it too, but it's not as consistently as Churchland. So why in the same system is one school doing much better than the other? I mean, are they getting the better teachers, or is it a parent thing or population?
Population that is put into the school. You look at the population that's in Churchland, you look at the populations in Norcom, and look at where the children are coming from. Look at the home environments and with kids. If kids are coming out of home environments, but parents will say, you got to come home, you got to study, you got to get your lesson, you got to go to school on time. Now make sure you got a meal before you go to school. Make sure you have everything you need when you get to school. You're going to do better. But if you're coming from a home where your mother may not be there, you got to take care of your little brother and sister before you go to school. You're not getting that meal. You're not getting that nourishment that you need before you go to school. you're not going to get the same results. You're not going to get the same results.
That's very that's very true. I taught at-risk kids 9th through 12th grade for 3 years before I came down here to Dallas, and it is exactly what you said, Leah. It's your environment, it's the people you're living with, and you're right. There's children taking care of children, and then they've got to come to school, and every child learns differently. As you said, Slim, you've got people. I had children that were visual learners. You show them how to do it, they could do it. But you talk it to them, you show it to them instructions on a black and white piece of paper, they had no clue. They couldn't follow you. Then I had other ones that read real well, and you're absolutely right. Teaching to the test has been an issue. And I think that's why SAT came out and said we're going to change up the way we're doing it, because again, that's institutionalized racism, whatever you want to call it, because I haven't been taught that. I don't know those values. I don't know that wording. It's not that I can't learn it. It's just I haven't grown up with that.
You haven't been exposed to it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
The other debate is charter schools. And, we're having this big debate where the right wants to shift all the money to these charter schools. But if you go to any charter school, you won't see any at-risk kid. You won't see any kid with a disability. And you'll only see the other folks there, in majority. And we may have some of us spattered in and there, but we don't, not enough numbers to say reflect that society in that where they live.
Because a charter school can deny you entrance. They're not supposed to be able to. But look, the charter school wants to keep, it's the student to teacher ratio. So if I'm sitting in Dallas and I have 30 kids to one teacher, but I can sit in this charter school and I have 15 kids to one teacher, I have better equipment, they can pick and choose who they want to come to their school. They say they're not. And they're talking about, there's that argument about vouchers, Thomas. They say we're going to give these people vouchers. Well, the voucher doesn't pay enough for the charter school. The voucher may pay a little bit, but you're still coming out your pocket with a lot of money. And a private school doesn't mean you have a better education than you have in a public school. That's a myth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a straight up myth.
Yes.
But you're right. There's more other people than us in the charter school, and that's what the charter school is made for. It's still separate but equal. They're finding a way to define separate but equal and put another piece of lipstick on that pig.
Yeah.
And you find in some of these church schools that they have in them children who would not make it in the public school system. And that's why they have them in the church school, because they really wouldn't make it, because of emotional reasons, or my family have the money to pay for me to go there. Of course, they're much smaller classes as well, and you're also limited there as to who can go, because if you don't have the money, you're not going there either.
No. So if you can't go to the charter school, you can't go to the Montessori school, and you go to a public school that is not being funded well, what do they expect the outcome of that child to be at the end of the day?
Exactly.
Yep. And then they can turn around and say, well, see, that's the inner city. But you're the one that's tamping the inner city down. I'm not tamping it down.
Yep. I'm taking taxpayer money and folding into this private industry, which shouldn't be.
And that's what DeVos tried to do while she was Secretary of Education.
Yeah,
that was her whole scheme, to try to privatize public school.
Yep. But we know how bad she was.
Yeah, her and her brother.
Yeah.
But and also we look at the fact, we get back to the teachers again. They're not. And when we were in school, teachers invested a lot of time in the students. Well, for one thing, they didn't have to teach us to pass a test. That's the first thing. Secondly, although the pay may not have been great, but they were invested in the students who were in the school. The teachers stayed back to be the leadership over school activities at the end of the day. You don't get a lot of teachers who stay back anymore to be like over the speech club or over the drama club or over the the rap bunch social studies club or the forensics club. You just don't have the individual. Teachers are burnt out. They're
Yeah.
so burnt out, and I'm sure that I know for many of my friends who are teachers, I know that they would be willing to come back to be, but there's so much put on them. There's so much pressure put on them, um, through the rules and regulations, and they got to spend their money. They got to spend their money to meet the needs of their students.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time you get to the end of the day, you're just worn out. You just don't have the time to spend with the children.
Mm-hmm.
One student, I showed her all the activities that we had after school. She said, "How did you all have?" I was showing her my yearbook and showing her all the clubs and organizations that I belonged to when I was in high school. And she said, "Well, how were you able to do that?" And that's because our teachers really put that time in, but they didn't have the pressures on them that the teachers have on them today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of times you never came straight home. You were involved
Never
in
came straight
something.
home.
If it wasn't sports, it was one of the clubs or something like that, which also was a plus. It's still because a lot of your parents, when you came home, a lot of your parents were still working. They
Exactly.
hadn't gotten home yet, so you were in a position where you were looking out for yourself, or you might fall into something that wasn't in your best interest. So
Mm-hmm.
those after school activities really helped. The parents.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that wording "latchkey children" came out?
Yep.
Remember when
Yep.
they had latchkey children, and the schools now have gone away with a lot of those clubs. They don't even exist. They're trying to take arts out of school. A lot of arts
Mm-hmm.
they're not in school anymore. A lot of schools.
And the arts are crucial. The arts
Yes,
are crucial.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Conrad,
our teachers, our
Conrad,
teachers.
you doing Conrad what Conrad just wrote?
Yeah, I just looked
Yeah.
at it.
Conrad said, "Remember, Virginia has a history on this with massive resistance, creating school choice to avoid integration."
Yep.
So true.
Well, we're all
Sometimes, I think we did so much better in the segregated. We didn't have the books. We didn't have the tools. We didn't have the best buildings. We didn't have air conditioning in our building. But you know one thing? We did well.
Yeah.
And
We
that's
did
what
well. We
that's what
did
I was
well.
that's what I was going to say. Teachers pretty much wrote their own lesson plans, and
Yes.
of course, you had a curriculum you had to follow that was handed down by the state, but that was just a guide, and they really wrote their own lesson plans. I wonder if they even do that. They probably have to turn it in, but it's probably half of it is written for them as far as what they have to follow. And the teachers could be a lot creative. I mean, sometimes we would go to class and you might be expecting, to go over that homework assignment you had the night before, and the teacher does she does a complete turnaround and say, "Well, let's do this today." And
Mm-hmm.
she had that leeway to be able to do that. It kept her interested in what's going on. It kept it from being boring to the kids, to the students, and they just had a little bit more control on how they ran their classroom.
Yes.
And nobody came, and the principals used to come around every once in a while and sit in on them, but that was something that they had to do. But it wasn't pressure. Are you doing this? And they knew the teachers were doing what they're supposed to do beyond outside of the textbook, which is where a lot of that learning came from. A lot of those lessons came from outside of the
That's
textbook.
true.
But now that's a fireable offense.
Oh,
Yeah. All you need is someone to turn you in. Oh, did he say something about George Washington Carver? No, they might let George Washington Carver go, but
Oh, that's about 4 or 5 that it's okay to talk about. Rosa Parks,
yeah,
Martin Luther King, George
yeah,
Washington, all
Booker T. Washington, and
Hey,
yeah,
Booker T. Washington, got about 5 of them. 5 of them that's safe to talk
yeah.
about.
But don't bring up Malcolm X.
That's true.
Conrad,
And
you're right. That is something that Malcolm might have said, what I just said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Conrad.
Yeah, teaching to the test, worrying about what the school board's going to do, the administration. worrying about what a parent's going to do if the student goes home and says you brought up one of those names or you taught some. CRT is a big word out here in the nation right now, and most people couldn't even explain what CRT is.
They don't even know what CRT is.
But they know the word race is in there, so behind the word race, they've actually tried to teach. They're telling teachers in Texas that you might need to teach an opposite view, opposing view. There's no opposing view. There's not an opposing view to slavery. Sometimes things are just wrong. Period. The end. Full stop. You don't have to go any further than that. I don't need to know why Hitler killed. I know Hitler killed, the Nazi party killed Jews, and I've got the death camps to show it. I've got the prison camps to show it. I've got the survivors to show it. I don't need to have an opposing view to why you thought that you should be able to do that. That was good. There's not good people on that side, as Trump said. There's not necessarily good people on both sides of every issue.
Oh no, it was that was a one-sided one-sided thing there.
And so is slavery.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. Good point.
I had something I was gonna say. Somebody say something. Maybe I can think of it. Having a senior moment. I think it was a good point too. And Conrad did mention Fred Hampton. I bet you any student in school now, you go in there and ask them who was Fred Hampton. And it was significant in history. They made the news. Well, he really made the news when he was murdered. But he was out there the whole time. He wasn't but 22 years old, but he was a threat. He was a threat.
Yes.
Because of what he was doing, and along with his words, and forget about all the good things they were doing as far as feeding, the breakfast programs they had and everything like that. Forget about that. But those words that came out of his mouth, trying to make people aware of what's happening, that was a threat enough to them to silence him permanently.
Got to take him back.
Our students need to know about those people. It's not going to make them go out and riot.
I know my first trip to Ghana, and I was talking to some little kids over there in Ghana, because whenever I go to another country, I always try to go where the children are to see what's on the children's minds and whatever. And these little children, they were coming up to me and they were saying, and I would ask them about somebody in African-American history, and they would give me the answers, and I would come back and ask them about somebody else in African-American history. They'd come back and they'd give me the answers, and they were learning all this stuff. I came back home. I went to a school, not an elementary school, not a middle school. I went to a high school and asked, who can tell me about Jackie Robinson? Not a hand went up.
Yep.
Not a hand went up. And you know what? And James, I go back to what the chief told me when I was there. When he gave me that Sankofa bird, he said, go back and teach your children their history. He said, because if you don't teach their history, people can lead them into believing anything is true. Mm-hmm. And that is the truth. If we don't get the history, if we can't get the children, and a lot of our children don't even want to hear about the history. That's the sad part about it. Mm-hmm. They don't want to know about it. Oh, that's old stuff you're talking about.
Well, but they're living in history.
Their lives.
They're living in history, and they don't want to know about history. And years down the road, they'll be looking back at things that they were around that was making history, and say, I remember that. I was there. I was a part of that. So, but what can you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, when I went to Douglas Park one time and Black History Month, they were talking about the national figures, Black figures, which is good. But nobody was talking about any of the local
Black
history that we have here, Black history. Uh-huh. And like I've said on the show before, some people that were still here, and or some people that were grew up in your neighborhood, and you don't know anything about them and significant strides they made during the Jim Crow era, during time after that, or last year, and you don't know, and we don't focus on that during Black History Month. We just talk about the national figures, which you have to know about that too. And there's only a few of them
Only a
we
few.
mentioned.
Only a few.
Only a few of them we mentioned. We don't get deep into, you know, some of the other names that we mentioned a few minutes ago. And I hope we can at some point get into teaching the local history of people that's been here and done some things like Mayor Harley and, you know.
Yeah, to most people that, you know, Mayor Harley and that part of history is long gone, unless you go down and look at his the building downtown.
Yeah.
And they look at the building and don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like somebody say, "Oh, you live on Bismarck Myrick Street." Who is Bismarck Myrick? I don't have a clue who Bismarck Myrick is. You know,
Yeah.
you're living on the street and you don't even know who the person is whose street you're living on, you know.
Yeah, it's a Tip Carpenter Street out there as well.
Exactly. We got Ruth Brown Lane, you know. Who are these people who you're talking? And that's the question. You got to get kids starting to ask questions. Ask questions so that you can know who individuals are.
Yeah.
So do we have the teachers that are giving them the opportunity to ask questions, or do we have
They have to
high
teach
school
them to pass
teachers
the test.
lecturing like college professors?
They gotta teach them to pass the test. Everything is geared towards passing the SOLs.
You can't ask the question if you can't give the answer if the students don't know the question.
And does the teacher know the answer?
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Well, you know, like we always talk about, it all comes down to politics, right, Colonel? You know, the SLLs, you know, that can be easily solved. It can easily be gotten rid of. Do we ask those questions? And I was talking to somebody today, when politicians come around, some of the questions we ask are the same questions every year. Do we ask those questions that really could make policy differences? We ask those questions and that's why they want to have questions in advance, so they can have those canned answers, you know. And anybody that comes up here, I would not send them, or not want to send, or if I did send them, you know, we totally go away from that, because you ought to be, if you're running, you ought to be able to answer the question, whatever comes before you. And I think sometimes we don't ask the right questions, you know, and then so if we can't hold them accountable for things that don't happen in our neighborhood if we haven't addressed it or we hadn't asked the right questions.
And the thing about
They
it, when
prepare
you
for other stuff.
asking the question, you have to do your research before the people get there. You have to learn, what have they done? What have they done? What laws have they passed? What bills have they passed? You know, what bills did they fight against? You know, what are they proposing to bring to the table? So you have to do your research, or else you don't know what to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what to ask if you don't do the research beforehand.
And oftentimes in the political stage, in the political arena, the politicians have the same agenda. They may name it something else, but it's the same agenda. I watched a documentary back in the 40s where it was the same thing. We're going to reduce taxes. We're going to cut unemployment. It was the same thing. It was the same issue in the 40s. You haven't done it yet. You know, you haven't done it yet. So I can.
The documentary was from the 40s. You weren't in the 40s watching it, right?
No, I was watching.
Oh, okay. That's what it sounded like. You said I was watching something in the 40s.
Yeah, I was watching something in the 40s. Yeah.
I thought you were a little. I thought I was older than you, bro.
I think you older than me. Yeah, but yeah, and now you hear the same thing. We're going to reduce inflation. We're going to cut taxes. But that's not those aren't the biggest problems we have in this country. That's not the biggest problems you have in Portsmouth. You know, that is a problem, but it's been there. There's other problems that are probably more important than those.
Well, you know, the other thing is ask the question, how are you going to do that? And when you reduce taxes and you're taking money out the tax base, how are you going to make it up? What road am I not going to pave?
Right.
Yeah, we just listen to them say, well, if you elect me, I'm going to reduce taxes. I'm going to do this. And okay, well, spell it out. How are you going to do that? You know, tell us exactly how you can do that, because you got to take something from somewhere else, or you have to have something that creates more funding, you know, to fill in for what you take, you know, that tax cuts you're giving everybody. Just like the big boys do those tax cuts, but they don't have anything to replace the tax cuts that they make for the rich and famous.
Yeah.
And they knew
Except for
they knew that going in. They knew they didn't have a replacement for it.
I know. But you know what? And the tax cut, you know, most of them are saying because they had a little bit of money on this food tax. So that was their big tax cut. And did you feel it on buying groceries? No. No.
Not at all.
Not at all. It was a waste.
Not at all.
Yep.
Well, I thought you meant did we feel the weight of it? I mean,
Yeah.
groceries going up. Yeah, I felt that. But you talking about as far as reduction
Yeah.
in the groceries. Yeah. Went up. Well, anyway, we're about 10 minutes away. I know pretty soon the colonel's going to say it's football time, but
How'd you guess?
but the Super Bowl champs are playing somebody. But Detroit, okay, that's might as well kept it at somebody. But
Detroit.
but we have 10 minutes away. Any last comments? And you know, we talked about the schools and what do you guys see as the future? Where can we go, and where does it need to be? Does it have to be us, the parents, or something to really push harder than what we're doing now in order to see some kind of change? Because we have this conversation every year about the way it was and the way it is now. It seems like every year you lose more and more teachers because nothing has been done. And we know what the problem is, or the school system and the elected officials know what the problem is, but we don't see any solutions.
Vote.
And I can't expect us to have them all, but you know.
We need more incentives for teachers, and we need to get to the point where we value teachers. I mean, we're gonna have to get parents
We can
to
revere them like we did.
get parents to realize that these people are there for their children, and parents need to give them the support that they need. The administration, they need to give them the support that they need, and there needs to be some encouragement for them, because otherwise we're not going to have any teachers left in the school. They got to give them incentive money wise, as well as you can find other ways to incentivize folks to make them feel good about the job that they're holding. And so we're going to have to find some way that we can engage parents, have parents to have an understanding that teachers are there not to bring harm to their children, but to really to teach their children as best they can with what they have. So I think the focus is going to have to be, if we can get teachers more engaged and more involved, I think it's going to make a difference with the children as well.
Yeah.
You're right.
I think they also need to vote. And when I say vote, you know, the school boards make a lot of they make the decisions. So and people won't come out to vote for a school board. I mean, it would maybe be 3, 5, 10, 8,000 people that vote for the school board election. And that's a critical part of the infrastructure that's going to help teach your children.
Yeah.
So
and you can see across the country where the crazies have taken over a lot of the school boards.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also important when you attend those school board meetings, you know, you see a lot of people, it's packed when they're honoring some of your kid or some of the students there, and that's fine. They should be recognized. But as soon as that's over, half the place gets up and walks out. And miss all the business that's going on. And they even have opportunities to speak to the school board, you know, during the public hearing sessions. But by that time, all the people have left because they came there for one purpose, and they forget about the work that's about to be done after they leave, which they might have some input in. So that's on the parents or the people that's attending those meetings. You can't just put those people in office and not know what they're doing.
Yes.
And then complain after they've made those decisions. You have to, you know, just sort of hang in there. That's to the parents. So it's a little bit of responsibility for everybody, all of us.
I agree with Leah that you know, we teachers, we respected our teachers, we revered our teachers, and we honored them being teachers, even though we didn't like it when we were there. And we're children of that desegregation time. We were the kids that were being bused to schools and stuff to desegregate other schools like Woodrow Wilson, Churchland. But now the culture wars have taken over the schools, like Thomas said, and it's sad because our students are losing, kids are losing.
They are losing, and that takes away the next generation
because of political agendas.
Yes.
Which really have no. Well, I mean, I'd go to say no business in schools, but you have to have politics is everywhere. But when political agendas can affect the how our students learn, that's a problem.
Yes.
And, what they learn.
And what they learn.
If you can take somebody's history away from them, as you said, you can teach them whatever you want to teach them. You can tell them anything you want to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they don't know it's wrong. They don't know they're wrong. And they're going to tell a generation. And they're going to tell a generation.
Then you got a bunch of lost souls out there.
Yes.
Yes.
Not knowing where they came from, not knowing the contributions of their ancestors.
No. And when they'll say things like, we're protecting our children. Our children, we don't want to make our children feel guilty. Well, what do you think about those 9 children in Little Rock that were being talked junk about all day when they go to school? How do you feel their mothers and fathers felt? How do you think other children felt? We're not trying to tell you you're wrong. They're not trying to say that your child has anything to do with it. But we want you to know that there are circumstances and issues that happen that caused us to be the way we are now. It caused this nation to be the way it is now. It's that simple. It's not really a hard issue.
All right. Well, we still have anybody else? We still have about 4 minutes.
But I guess my dog has an opinion because she
let the dog in.
Okay.
She might make just as much sense as some other
me.
People on the national scene might make.
You better believe that.
Probably better sense.
Yeah, probably. But anyway, thanks everybody. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. And thanks for everybody for watching. And you see scrolling across, if you want to support us here at Portsmouth Coffee Talk, feel free to do so. If you want to be a part of our conversation, let us know, and we'll work out a time that you can come on and express your opinions. We're looking for that. Thanks everybody, and co-hosts and guest hosts, thanks a lot. We appreciate you. And Johnny, we'll be looking for a lot from you.
I'll give you what I got.
I'm talking about in time, as far as time, coming on. I know you have a lot to give.
And James, we have to thank you because you brought us to a new platform and you're teaching us new things. And for that, I'm saying thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
I'm still learning. Couldn't do it without you guys. I mean, you are the backbone of this, and all the different opinions we come up with. And I think it's a conversation that people that want to hear. It's not all about watching comedy and sitcoms. Sometimes you have to sit down and talk about the issues. And that's what we're all about here. So again, thank you everybody, and take care. And go. I don't care who wins tonight. I'll just be concentrating on Sunday. And Leah, you're gonna hear from us Monday morning.
Oh my goodness!
Because our boys play Sunday.
I'm not gonna be able to hear you Monday because I'll be working on Grand Reunion. Okay, and my mind is gonna be totally on Grand Reunion. Okay.
Okay. All right, everybody, and as you go this weekend out to those high school football games, be safe and be aware of your surroundings. Protect your children, and if you see something, say something.
Exactly.
Take care. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.